Hold up. Wait a minute. The Braxton family just got turned completely upside down, and nobody saw this coming. Tamar Braxton just dropped a bomb so heavy that the entire entertainment world is still trying to process what just happened. We're talking about allegations against her own mother, Evelyn Braxton, that go back decades. And when I tell you it's dark, I mean the kind of dark that makes you question everything you thought you knew about this family. Just 3 days ago, Tamar went on Instagram Live at 2 a.m. Yeah, you heard that right, 2 a.m. and started spilling tea that had been brewing for over 30 years. She was crying, she was angry, and most importantly, she was done keeping quiet. According to people who watched the live before it mysteriously disappeared, Tamar said something that sent shockwaves through social media. "My mother broke me before the world ever got the chance to." Now, before we get into the heavy stuff, you need to understand something about the Braxton family dynamic. On TV, on red carpets, in interviews, they've always presented this united front. The matriarch Evelyn, surrounded by her talented daughters, all supporting each other through thick and thin. But behind closed doors, that's where the real story was happening. And according to Tamar, what was happening behind those doors was nothing short of psychological warfare. The first sign something was seriously wrong came back in 2020 when Tamar attempted to take her own life. At the time, she blamed the pressures of reality TV and the entertainment industry. But now, she's painting a completely different picture. In a series of leaked voice notes that surfaced on Twitter last week, Tamar can be heard saying, "The industry didn't break me. The foundation was already cracked from home." What exactly does she mean by that? Well, buckle up because this is where things get really intense. According to multiple sources close to the family, Evelyn Braxton allegedly maintained an iron grip on every aspect of Tamar's life from the time she was a child. We're not talking about normal parental guidance here. One family friend who spoke on condition of anonymity said Evelyn would literally script conversations for Tamar before important meetings. She'd tell her exactly what to say, how to say it, and would punish her if she deviated from the script. But it goes deeper than that. Tamar claims her mother would pit the sisters against each other, creating competition where there didn't need to be any. She'd allegedly tell Tony that Tamar was trying to steal her spotlight, then turn around and tell Tamar that Tony thought she wasn't talented enough to make it on her own. Classic divide and conquer tactics, except this was happening within their own family. There's this one incident from 1998 that really shows how twisted things got. Tamar had just landed her first solo record deal. She was 21 years old, excited, ready to take on the world. The night before she was supposed to sign the contract, Evelyn allegedly sat her down and told her, "You're not ready for this, you'll embarrass the family name." Then, and this is according to Tamar's recent revelations, Evelyn called the label and convinced them to drop the deal, all while telling Tamar that the label had changed their mind on their own. Can you imagine? Your own mother sabotaging your career breakthrough and then lying to your face about it? Tamar says she didn't find out the truth until 2015, 17 years later, when she ran into an executive from that label at an industry event. He casually mentioned how surprised he was when your mother called and said you weren't interested anymore. The financial control was another level of manipulation entirely. Even after Tamar started making her own money, Evelyn allegedly insisted on managing her finances. As in, Tamar would have to ask permission to spend her own money. One text message from 2018 that was leaked shows Evelyn responding to Tamar's request to buy a new car. "You don't need a new car. What you need is to remember who got you where you are." Friends say this control extended to everything: concert outfits, backup dancers, studio time. If Tamar tried to make decisions on her own, the guilt trips would start. "After everything I've sacrificed for you," was apparently Evelyn's favorite phrase, pulled out whenever Tamar showed any independence. The manipulation had a cruel edge. During a meeting with a major producer in 2011, Evelyn allegedly interrupted Tamar mid-sentence to say, "She gets these ideas but doesn't really understand the business side." The producer later told Tamar he was shocked by how her own mother undermined her professionally. Now, some of you might be thinking, but what about Braxton family values? They seemed so close on the show. Yeah, about that. Tamar claims the show was actually one of the worst things that happened to her relationship with her mother. Why? because it gave Evelyn a public platform to continue the manipulation. Except now it was being broadcast to millions of people. Remember all those times on the show when Evelyn would make comments about Tamar being extra or dramatic? Tamar now says those weren't just playful family jokes. They were calculated moves to paint her as the difficult one, the problem child, the one who couldn't be taken seriously. And it worked. How many times have you seen people online calling Tamar too much or dramatic? That narrative didn't come from nowhere. There's this particularly painful episode from season 3 where the family is discussing Tamar's music career, and Evelyn says on camera, Tamar needs to learn to be grateful for what she has instead of always wanting more. Sounds reasonable on the surface, right? But according to Tamar, that comment came right after she'd privately told her mother she wanted to switch management because she felt her career was being mishandled. That wasn't motherly advice, it was a public warning to stay in line. The sisters' relationships with each other have also been affected by all this. Tamar recently revealed that Evelyn would share private information about one sister with the others, always framing it as concern, but really using it to create discord. She'd tell Tawanda about Tamar's financial problems, share Trina's relationship issues with Tony, and spread Tony's health concerns to everyone else. Nothing was sacred. Nothing was private. In 2019, when Tamar was going through her divorce from Vince Herbert, she confided in her mother about some deeply personal issues in the marriage. Within a week, allegedly, every sister knew the intimate details. When Tamar confronted Evelyn about breaking her trust, her mother's response was, "Family doesn't keep secrets from family." Except, as Tamar points out, Evelyn had plenty of her own secrets that she kept locked away. Speaking of Vince, Tamar now claims that her mother actually encouraged her to stay in that marriage even when it was clearly falling apart. Not because she thought it was best for Tamar, but because, allegedly, she was worried about how a divorce would look for the family brand. "The Braxtons don't get divorced," Evelyn supposedly told her. Meanwhile, Tamar was miserable, struggling, and needed support, not image management. The control extended to Tamar's relationships with men in general. Every boyfriend, every potential romantic interest had to be vetted by Evelyn. And if she didn't approve, she'd find ways to sabotage the relationship. One ex-boyfriend of Tamar's recently came forward saying Evelyn called him repeatedly, telling him he wasn't good enough for her daughter, that he was holding her back, that real men don't date women more successful than them. He ended the relationship because he couldn't handle the constant pressure and negativity from Tamar's mother. But here's where it gets really dark. Tamar alleges that the control and manipulation started when she was just a child. She claims Evelyn would punish her not just for misbehaving, but for showing too much personality, for being too loud, too opinionated, too much herself. "I learned early on that being myself was wrong," Tamar said in one of the leaked voice notes. "I had to be whoever she needed me to be that day." There's this story from when Tamar was 12 years old. She'd been selected to sing a solo at church, and she was so excited. She practiced for weeks, picked out her outfit, was ready to shine. The morning of the performance, Evelyn allegedly told her she wasn't allowing her to do it because she'd been too proud about it. Tamar had to watch from the pews as another girl sang the solo she'd prepared for. The message was clear: your achievements belong to me, and I can take them away whenever I want. The psychological impact of this treatment is devastating. Tamar's talked about dealing with anxiety and depression for most of her adult life, but never explained where it came from. Now we know. When you grow up being told your thoughts and feelings don't matter, it does damage that takes years to undo. In 2021, Tamar started therapy and began to understand what she'd been through. Her therapist introduced terms like narcissistic abuse and gaslighting, and everything clicked. The confusion, self-doubt, the feeling of never being good enough, it all had a source. The family meetings were another form of torture, according to Tamar. These sessions, supposedly for family business, would turn into dissections of Tamar's flaws in front of everyone. If she defended herself, she was defensive. If she didn't, she was admitting guilt. One brutal meeting happened in 2017, right after Tamar won a Daytime Emmy for The Real. Instead of celebrating, Evelyn allegedly spent an hour talking about how Tamar needed to stay humble and remember where she came from. The message was clear: Don't forget who's in charge. The isolation tactics were subtle but effective. Whenever Tamar would get close to someone outside the family, a friend, a mentor, anyone who might give her a different perspective, Evelyn would find ways to drive a wedge between them. She'd plant seeds of doubt, spread rumors, or create situations that would cause conflict. Eventually, Tamar found herself with no one to turn to except the very person who was causing her pain. This is classic abusive behavior, by the way. Isolate the victim, make them dependent on you, then use that dependence to maintain control. It's a cycle that's incredibly hard to break, especially when the abuser is your mother, and the flying monkeys are your own sisters who don't even realize they're being used as weapons. Now, Evelyn hasn't directly responded to these specific allegations yet, but she did post a cryptic message on Instagram saying, "The truth always has three sides: yours, mine, and what really happened." That's not exactly a denial, is it? And the fact that none of the other sisters have come forward to defend their mother or deny Tamar's claims is telling. They might not be confirming the allegations, but their silence speaks volumes. What's really sad is that Tamar says she still loves her mother. Even after everything, even with all the pain and manipulation, there's still that child inside her who wants her mother's approval, who wants to believe that somewhere underneath all the control and cruelty, there's genuine love. That's the most heartbreaking part of this whole situation. Tamar isn't trying to destroy her mother. She's trying to free herself. The leaked journal entries are perhaps the most revealing. In one entry from 2016, Tamar wrote, "I feel like I'm drowning in her expectations. Every success feels hollow because I know she'll find something wrong with it. Every failure feels catastrophic because I know she'll use it against me forever. I don't know who I am anymore. Maybe I never did." Another entry from 2019 reads, "She called me today. 45 minutes of telling me everything I'm doing wrong with my life. I'm 42 years old. When does it end? When do I get to just be enough?" The answer to that question might be now. Tamar's decision to go public with these allegations isn't just about exposing her mother. It's about breaking the cycle, refusing to participate in the dysfunction anymore, and maybe, just maybe, inspiring others who are trapped in similar situations to find their own freedom. Industry insiders are starting to come forward with their own observations. One music executive said, "We always wondered why Tamar seemed so different when Evelyn wasn't around. She was confident, creative, full of ideas, but the moment her mother walked in, she'd shrink." A choreographer who worked on Braxton Family Values recalled, "Evelyn would immediately point out what could have been better instead of praise. I remember thinking, why can't she just let her daughter have this moment?" The pattern was so consistent that people who worked with the family developed a code word, weather alert, to warn each other when Evelyn was being particularly harsh. What's particularly disturbing is how this treatment affected Tamar's ability to trust her own judgment. She's admitted that for years, she couldn't make even simple decisions without second-guessing herself. What to wear, what to eat, what to say in interviews? Everything required validation because she'd been taught that her own instincts were wrong. In her recent revelations, Tamar shared a conversation from 2022 where she told Evelyn she was thinking about taking a break from music to focus on her mental health. Evelyn's alleged response? "Mental health is just an excuse weak people use. We're Braxtons. We're not weak." That's not just dismissive, it's dangerous. Telling someone struggling with mental health issues that seeking help is weakness? That's how tragedies happen. And speaking of tragedy, let's go back to that suicide attempt in 2020. Tamar now says that in the weeks leading up to it, she'd been having intense arguments with her mother about her career direction. Evelyn wanted her to do another reality show. Tamar wanted to focus on her music. The pressure, the guilt trips, the constant criticism, it all became too much. When Tamar was in the hospital recovering, Evelyn allegedly told people it was exhaustion. Even in that moment, when her daughter had nearly died, the image was more important than the truth. It wasn't until Tamar herself went public with what really happened that the narrative changed. The sisters' silence on this issue is complicated. Sources say they're torn between supporting Tamar and protecting their mother. They've all experienced Evelyn's controlling behavior to some degree, but none as intensely as Tamar. Tony, in particular, is said to be deeply affected by Tamar's revelations. As the eldest and most successful, she's always had a different relationship with Evelyn, but she's also witnessed how their mother treats Tamar. The financial implications are significant too. The Braxton brand has been built on this image of a close-knit family. If that image is shattered, what happens to the shows, the music, the endorsements? But Tamar seems to have reached a point where the money doesn't matter anymore. In one of her recent posts, she wrote, "I'd rather be free and broke than wealthy and caged." The response from fans has been overwhelming. Many are sharing their own stories of family manipulation and control. The hashtag #Tamar told the truth has been trending for days, with thousands of people expressing support and validation for what she's going through. It seems Tamar's story has struck a chord with people who understand that sometimes the most damaging abuse comes from the people who claim to love you most. Mental health professionals have been weighing in, pointing out that what Tamar describes as textbook emotional abuse. The gaslighting, isolation, constant criticism disguised as concern. These are all tactics used by abusers to maintain control. The fact that it's her mother doesn't make it less abusive. If anything, it makes it more insidious. Not all mothers have their children's best interests at heart. Some see their children as extensions of themselves, as possessions to be controlled. When those children try to establish their own identities, it's seen as betrayal. Tamar's courage in speaking out is already having an impact. Several celebrities have reached out publicly to express their support. Wendy Williams, who's had her own complicated relationship with Tamar, posted, "Sometimes you have to tell your truth even when it hurts. Proud of you, Tamar." K. Michelle, who's been friends with Tamar for years, was more direct. "I've watched this woman suffer in silence for too long. What she's saying is true, and it's time people knew." Even some of Evelyn's friends are reportedly questioning what they thought they knew. One church friend who's known the family for decades said, "I always thought Evelyn was strict but loving. Now I'm wondering if I missed the signs." The most recent development is that Tamar has allegedly been collecting evidence for years: screenshots, recordings, documents. Not for legal purposes, but for her own validation. Having concrete proof has been crucial for her healing process. One recording that's supposedly particularly damning is from a 2018 family dinner. You can allegedly hear Evelyn berating Tamar for 20 minutes straight about everything from her weight to her parenting. At one point, Tamar can be heard crying and saying, "Please stop," to which Evelyn reportedly responds, "I'll stop when you start acting right." This isn't tough love, this is abuse. The question now is, where does the family go from here? Can these relationships be salvaged? Should they be? Tamar says she's open to reconciliation, but only if there's acknowledgement of what happened and genuine change. She's not holding her breath, though. In her words, narcissists don't change, they just find new ways to manipulate. What's clear is that Tamar is done playing by the old rules. She's in therapy, she's setting boundaries, and she's learning who she is outside of her mother's shadow. It's a journey that's both heartbreaking and inspiring to watch. For those of you who might be recognizing your own family dynamics in Tamar's story, know that you're not alone. Family abuse is real, it's damaging, and it's not your fault. The guilt, the obligation, the fear of speaking up, these are all normal responses to abnormal situations. But like Tamar is showing us, there comes a point when your own survival has to take priority over family loyalty. This story is far from over. There will likely be more revelations, more responses, more fallout. The Braxton family as we knew it may never be the same. But maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe this is the breaking point that leads to healing, to healthier dynamics, to relationships based on genuine love rather than control and manipulation. Tamar ended her most recent statement with these words, "I'm not trying to hurt anyone, I'm trying to heal myself. And if my story helps even one person recognize that they deserve better, then it's worth whatever comes next." That's powerful, that's brave, and that's the Tamar Braxton who is always there, underneath all the pain and performance, the one who's finally free to be herself. So I want to know, what do you think about all of this? Have you experienced similar family dynamics? How do you break free from toxic family patterns while still honoring the love that might exist underneath the dysfunction? because this conversation is bigger than just the Braxtons. This is about all of us who've ever felt trapped by the very people who were supposed to set us free.